Look, it's rock and roll!
All right, Kiss Army. It's time to shout it out loud and kiss my collectibles.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Kiss My Collectibles, your source for vinyl, bootlegs, toys, and more. I think I said that backwards, but I'll get it right next time. I am one of your co-hosts, Jason Herndon, and with me, as always, is Mr. Andrew Scambatti.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here.
Hey. And joining us all the way out from, are you in San Francisco? Is that where you are?
I am indeed.
Out from San Francisco, from the Kiss FAQ and the Kiss FAQ podcast, is Mr. Julian Gill. How are you, sir?
Thank you, guys. Appreciate being on as always.
Esteemed author as well.
Esteemed author.
Well, that's debatable.
Hey, you can't argue with sales. You can't argue with sales. So
that's right. That's right.
No, but that probably gives author a bad name. So I do apologize for any authors that were damaged in the making of the start of this video.
All right.
You know, speaking of books, while we're talking about books really quick, if you have not ordered yet, I think the ordering might still be up, but head on over to the rockologists, plural.com to check up on all the updates for the Kiss My Wax LP Bible that's coming out by Mr. Tom Shannon, and make sure you check that out. And if you haven't bought it, and if it's available, please do so. Please purchase it. You won't regret it.
You stepped on my toes.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that we got it in there.
I was going to explain why he wasn't here with us and go into that. But yes, as Andrew said, there's definitely copies available. I've talked to Tom about how many he's printing, which I can't say right now, but you can definitely still head over there and purchase it. The pre-sales have done very well, and he's sold about half of what he's going to print. So. And we'll also, Andrew and I and Tom will be at the expo in Atlanta with Vinnie Vincent. We'll have a table, and Tom will have books there, and you can, see Andrew's Vinnie Vincent looking hair, and
except it's all mine. We're going to this expo. We don't know where it is, but we'll be there.
It's in Atlanta.
Did you see the news today? They are going to announce the venue on Friday.
Oh, good. I didn't see that. It's good to know.
Any other news was overshadowed today by Gene Simmons' vault.
That's right. So, Gene Simmons' vault. So, his big vault of 150 plus demos are finally going to come out. And the pricing tiers on this thing have caused quite an uproar. But I'm all for it. I think it's pretty cool, but you can go to genesimmonsvault.com to check out all the information.
Why are you plugging him?
Because, man, I like Kiss,
So do I.
And there's three tiers on this thing. There's a vault experience that's $2,000, and you plus one can hang out with Gene for 5 or 10 minutes and get some autographs. He'll hand deliver or hand you hit the vault, and you get some photos and things like that. Then there's a producer experience that's $25,000 where you get to sit in some studio time with Gene and get an executive producer credit on the set. And then there's the big honking $50,000 package where you and up to 25 guests can have Gene come to your house and deliver the thing and have a party for a couple of hours. So anyway, what do you guys think about that?
I'm going to take 2 of each package. And no, I think it's cool, and what's going to really get me jazzed about it is once we finally see what the track list is, because like you guys, I'm a big collector for demos and audio stuff and cool things like that. So I'm excited, what it's going to be as far as what's going to be on there. I mean, it's rumored that the 3 Van Halen demos are going to be on there where the Van Halen brothers played on demos for Love Gun. So I'm just jazzed to see what's going to be on there that wasn't on, the mother of all box sets that came out, almost 20 years ago now. So I'm excited for that, and I hope that maybe in my own little special way that this kind of kicks off more releases like this as far as content goes.
So I actually Yeah, I actually called the hotline today to try and get some information about the track listing. And I was ready with my fax number, bribes, all sorts of things, and they would not give me a track listing no matter what. Wow. And it's not something that they were advertising. They did have a kind of 90,000-foot view that they gave me over the phone, which was the Van Halen brother demos are on there. They did not specify whether they were all three, but while I was on hold, they did play part of a Christine 16 demo. Was it the Eddie Van Halen and Alex, drummer, version? Hard to tell on a telephone call, but it was certainly played. Also played on hold was It's My Life from 1982. Mm-hmm. So they did also say that there are current and past members of KISS on it. Now, I don't think they would tell you that as reading from a sheet over the phone if that wasn't entirely accurate. So hopefully we are going to see a lot of stuff like that. My personal kind of holy grail out of this would probably be Joe Perry and Gene demoing Mongoloid Man, even though I know it's dreadful. I know it's really repetitive and overrated, but I still want to hear it. And maybe some of the pre-Elder stuff Gene did. And Naked City, the demo, that Bob Kulick obviously made comments about them ruining it when they did it on Unmasked. So I'm excited. I said I was not going to do it. I said there was no way in hell I would pay $2,000 to go and pick up a silly box from Gene in Los Angeles. And the moment it was open, I bought it. So I'm absolutely no willpower whatsoever, and I'm an idiot. So
no, you're not an idiot. You're not an idiot at all.
Yeah, well, you know why it's +1? That's when the wife sees the credit card bill. But honey, you can come too. And they'll be like, no, I hate this.
I'm just waiting for, a high quality and then the very next pop rock single of My Uncle is a Raft. Oh, so I'm excited about that.
Well, the most surprising thing to me, when the original box set came out, I guess the big deal was those Bell Sound Studio demos, but we kind of knew those existed and kind of did we not know that those existed at the time, Julian?
For me, I knew that they had gone in and kind of recorded, but I didn't know that they had that they existed. For me, it was a total shock that any had survived. And that for me remains the high point of anything KISS has pretty much released. So I was absolutely blown away by that. And, Don't You Hesitate in that sort of quality. Don't You
Hesitate was awesome.
Well, see, what I was getting at was the thing that surprised me the most was having the demo with For You're All That I Want with Paul and Gene.
Yeah, true.
That's my favorite KISS track ever. And to hear that version of it is... it was mind-blowing to me. So I hope to hear a lot of things like that. Hopefully I won't be let down, but I want to hear not just another version of Calling Dr. Love, because we've heard tons of demos.
You're going to hear, they had one playing. And if you go to GeneSimmonsVault.com, they've changed all the background music that is available, even getting rid of, I think, Are You Ready? So, there were 4 different songs just up on that website today. Right. No one is going to share the recordings, hopefully, of what was played on the phone because they're really dire quality, and it's unfair for anyone to even kind of assume that the stuff on the box is going to sound anything like that. Right. But, I don't see why they would be using that sort of music on hold. And there was a really beautiful, kind of very Beatlesque ballad that played. It sounded like Julia. Of course, I'm going to think he was singing Julian. Just that's my ego taking it. But a very nice piece like that. There was also Calling Dr. Love, another demo. But Gene, he's such a recycler. He's probably got 15 different versions of Calling Dr. Love.
Sure.
I'd like to hear the 1970 publishing tape, though it didn't have drums. So there's so much stuff that even emptying out 150 of his probably his best quality stuff is going to leave a very large amount of stuff still for the future.
I agree. And I'm excited.
Well, Jason, let me ask you this. I mean, you say you hope you're not disappointed. Were you disappointed with the 2001 box set?
Oh, no, not at all. I was.
Me neither.
No, not at all. I thought it was fantastic. Bell Sounds was great. Yeah. I just, what I was getting at was I hope to hear a lot more of the type of stuff like You're All That I Want, where there was a totally different kind of idea that he had in mind for that song than what ended up on the record. I love to hear how songs, like, the leak of Detroit Rock City and all of that stuff. I'd love to hear how those songs develop. And once a producer gets their hands on it, I like to hear that walking stage, where you got Dr. Love. It's pretty much, once he wrote Dr. Love, it's pretty close to how it ended up. The idea was there, but I want to hear the songs that, a producer got their hands on, maybe on records like Destroyer and records on, like Dynasty and Unmasked that had more of a producer than just an engineer calling himself a producer. Nothing wrong with Eddie Kramer. I'm just saying, pretty much what they brought to the table kind of stayed as it was on those records, as opposed to, you hear something like Detroit Rock City and how when Bob Ezrin got his hands on it, it was, totally different. So I want to hear stuff like that if it exists.
Okay. And that was something else that they did mention on the call when he was when the rep was reading off his sheet, and he was saying that there is stuff on this that was intended for Destroyer. So I'm hoping that means that some of that stuff that did recently start circulating for most people, Nightfly, I would love to hear in pristine quality, the stuff that Bob Ezrin would not touch for Destroyer. I find very appealing, because if Bob Ezrin didn't find a song in that with his ear, with his skill, and all the talents that he brought to that album, then that is more pure Gene 1975. And obviously, without Peter on drums, maybe that takes a little problem out of the equation for Gene being able to release this stuff.
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear what song that No was better than. Like, Gene had two songs. He goes, you know what? No is better than this. So I can't wait to hear the song that was beat out by No.
Well, you are, and that was something I've interviewed Adam Mitchell recently for a new project, and apparently we will get Are You Always This Hot from the Crazy Nights album.
It's interesting on the one video where Gene is in the studio that he has up on the website. It shows, a recording box that has, Christine 16, Love for Sale, and all that stuff listed on it. But then it shows this rack of tapes, and I've paused it and taken a couple of screenshots, and you can see that tape of that song in there. So, there's some neat little titles in there.
Oh. Yeah, and who knows how many of those are actually going to be on there, but Turn to Stone or It or some of the Psycho Circus stuff that he was writing, that early 90s, and again, it's all guesswork at this point, because there is no known track listing and they're very reticent about circulating it. It's very appealing knowing some of the stuff that he has written, and listen to I think there's 4 videos up on the website. All of them have background music that are mainly constructed out of demos. You get to hear a demo of See You Tonight, which is one of my all-time favorite Gene Simmons songs, period.
Just navigating through the page, you can hear all that stuff too. It's cool.
Yeah. So, even if the price point to play is, it is very steep. There's no debating that. If it is too much for you, get some pleasure out of the glimpses that you do get into Gene Simmons' vault that he's sharing with you, and who knows what else he might actually share as things progress towards January, when things really start happening. Sure. We just don't know.
So who's going to give me the action figure? That's all I really want from that.
Sorry, I want to play with mine.
So let's get back to why we're really here. So it's been a while since we've covered some unofficial Kiss recordings, and I don't know if you can classify this as unofficial, because I know the band does have a copy of this, and this was reviewed for Kissology Volume 1, but not recorded. So we're here to talk about the famed show at Anaheim Stadium, Anaheim, California, August 20th, 1976. I know typically on these shows we do one audio, one video, but there's so much information about this show. There's so many versions, and there's so much cool stuff to talk about. So,
it's technically an audio and a video of this show.
Yeah. I mean, there and at one point it was completely two totally different products. So let's just kind of go around the hole here like we always do. And, talk about your first introductions to this show, or the first times that you remember hearing about it. We'll start with Jason.
Oh, no, yeah, I don't have no clue. It would have been it'd have probably been somewhere around 88 or 9 or somewhere in there, from a Peter Arquette catalog. As always, all of my bootlegs that I got back then, because I was fairly young, came from my buddy Danny Dabbs that lives close to me, and he would get it in on VHS and say, "Hey, I've got this. Let's come down and you can copy it and we can watch it and hang out and be ridiculous."
Pants optional.
Yeah, pants optional. And but I don't remember specifically. I don't know how you remember that stuff specifically, Andrew.
I mean,
it's 30 years ago, when I first saw it. But
mine's getting about to 20. What about you, Julian?
I'm thinking this is probably late 80s when I was, first getting into KISS, and Music City, the local record store in Binghamton, New York, did have bootlegs, and around that time, was my first bootlegs, which, I bought from them, which included the 73 demo, Wicked Lester, I think Winterland, and probably Anaheim, because it seems to go way back. It seems so ingrained in my psyche. I could be totally wrong. It could be, mid-90s. Who knows at this point? But it's a long time ago, and it's a very early part of my bootleg collecting history, and it was the audio version, because I just did not do VHS, and I don't even remember if that was actually even available back then, but that was all cassettes for me.
So mine, and I remember when I got both of them. The first one, it was summer of either 99 or 2000. I can't remember, but it's one of those two. I went to a local flea market by me, the Route 70 flea market, and Gary Danko from the famed Rainbow Rockatorium, he had a table,
yep.
And I was flipping through the records, and I saw this, and I didn't know what it was. So when he says, it's a live show from Anaheim Stadium, and I didn't have any bootlegs at the time. Or maybe I think I just might have had the Madison Square Garden 77 show on VHS. So I got this. I went home, and I remember having to listen to it on my parents' stereo because I didn't have a record player in my room. So I had to listen to it on their turntable with headphones plugged into it. And I thought, if you see the track listing down here, I go, oh, why'd they just pick random songs? I didn't understand that there was another part. So I thought that there was going to be the whole show, and then I turn it on. Obviously, it starts with Hotter Than Hell, and it went through, certain songs. So I thought it was great, and I remember wanting more, and I never got part 2, because soon after that, I think I got it on CD. I think it was on one of the prints of Unnecessary Evil that I got. That was the complete show. And actually, I remember that CD because the front cover was the Marvel comic from '77. The video I remember getting, I tried to get it from Gary, because right when I met Gary, the Rockatorium was kind of closing down. He was finishing up video trading and blah, blah, blah. So he didn't have the Anaheim show for one reason or another, because he had sold his master tapes. So I had to go on eBay, and I might even went on Yahoo Auctions. Not sure which one I went on, but one of them I went on, and I got a VHS tape, and this was possibly the worst copy of the show I've ever seen at any time. And I was pissed. I'm like, I can't believe I paid money, and this is so bad. It looked like someone taped it on EP, and it was just, it was terrible. It was almost unwatchable, and it took me years to get a better version. And I think on one of Peter Arquette's comps, or even one of those Fried Alive comps, there was a portion of the show that was in much better quality. And I just remember I was like, well, this is cool. But what I did notice, and this is, I noticed this first listen, the audio on the video was always different than the audio that I had on this record. The audio in the video was so bad because I don't know if you guys remember this, but the original VHS, the audio, Paul's microphone, wasn't on for the first 3 songs.
Right.
So I knew right off the bat that there was something different and something different going on. I knew that some shows I had, for example, Largo 79 was a straight rip from the video. So it's exactly the same source. But this was a different source, and I was always kind of wondering. And I was like, well, maybe I should try and sync this. I mean, I never did. But then years later, obviously, we'll get into Zodiac putting out the soundboard, and then the soundboard getting synced to the video.
Watching it now with the soundboard synced to the video is a completely different experience than all of those years that I've watched it and listened to the horrid audio that it had. It's, I watched it again last night, and I've probably watched it a few times in the past couple of years, here and there. But yeah, if you don't have a copy of it, seek it out. Try to get you a copy with the soundboard synced to the video, because it's superb. So, what were you going to say, Julia?
I'm going to go superb doesn't quite do it justice. It really is outstanding with the soundboard. I went back, I just looked in my closet where I've got a bunch of old VHS tapes from my trading days, and yeah, sure enough, it's there, and sure enough, it hasn't been played since I originally reviewed the tape. So, one thing I do remember from watching that old version that circulated was, while the audio was very patchy and it was a bit hit and miss, not only missing the Paul mic at the beginning, but throughout there are other issues. It was just one of those shows that stuck in my mind of, why wasn't this on Kissology? And as you mentioned, we'll discuss that in a bit more detail, because visually, and not just watching the version synced with the soundboard, very, very appealing show, even more so now.
Yes, agreed totally.
What's cool about that is this show kind of always appeared in little clips and little things that Kiss has released. The Deuce choreography from the end of the show is in Detroit Rock City, the opening credits of the movie. And if any of you guys had purchased the ebook that came with Monster in 2012, the bonus supplemented feature in that ebook, you click on a link and you get
Shout it out loud! Well, the night begun, and we won't.
I know Kiss owns it, and I'm just wondering why they haven't done anything with it. I mean, I get there's a lot of shaky camera, and it was typically just used for those giant screens on the other sides of the stage. So I know they probably kind of sat down and they probably said, well, we have this show, or we have Tokyo 77. To them, obviously Tokyo is the better product. They're wearing similar costumes. The staging is better. The lighting is better. Everything is better about it. So I know why they probably chose Tokyo over this. There's not even a Destroyer show on Kissology.
And just to jump in on there is, I think there may be more to it than just the Tokyo show looking better. There is documentation that exists that obviously Eddie Kramer was brought in to mix the sound for these shows.
Oh yeah.
So there may have been contractual issues, say having to pay someone points, which Eddie made a heck of a lot of money out of a lot of the shows that he did record for the band, and they may just have had a budget constraint that kept them from using it, and that's why it wasn't used even as a bonus disc.
Good.
So that's a total guess. That is not fact. Don't take it as fact, anyone listening, please. I'm just going by some of the stuff that I've read.
Yeah. I think a lot of things that were done to Kissology were done because of budgeting issues.
Agreed.
Not wanting to pay particular royalties to people and all sorts of different things. I mean, I'm sure that VH1 had a budget and said it's not worth it if we go this, over this. But I would guess that what you're saying is definitely right, Julian, for sure.
Yeah, anything's possible, and just listen to that soundboard compared to the audio, and that it's been well recorded.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So initially there was the video with its own audio. And then there was the bootleg audio that was out there as well, which in a minute here we'll get into all the versions that were released. So it was released in part 1 and then part 2, and then subsequent releases was called Unnecessary Evil. So that was a completely different audio than what was on the video. And then, years later, a elusive soundboard was leaked out into fan circles. Jason, you said you got yours like 2009-ish?
2009, I think, is when I got it. Yeah.
Okay. Julian, do you remember when you got it by chance?
The soundboard, yeah, I know exactly the date because it's still sitting on my server here, and I downloaded it October the 10th, 2014, and didn't listen to it until September the 9th, 2017. So Mr. Gill really missed that one.
Yeah.
I think I got mine in 2011 or 2012, right around there, and I had just the audio. And funny enough, my soundboard was missing Rock and Roll All Night. So when I tried to sync a video that I had to that audio, I mean, it was like, it was very trying times. And I was like, you know what? Someone else is going to do this. Fuck this. I'm not doing this.
Really? It was missing a song?
It's missing a song.
That's bizarre to me.
I know.
I mean, how does that happen?
I don't know.
It's not like it, it's not like cassettes, in those days where it's like, I don't have enough room on this. I don't want to finish it, listening to it or whatever, and cut it off. You're burning a CD or burning files. I don't understand how you're missing. That's bizarre.
He's missing a song. Maybe it just wasn't copied. So maybe that's
while you were talking, I was just browsing through some of my archive, and I did find the letter dated November the 12th, 1976. Bill O'Coin. And it's I enclosed for your files a fully executed copy of the letter agreement relating to Eddie Kramer's services as engineer in connection with the Kiss concert at Anaheim.
Oh, wow.
Would you please have a check in the amount of $1,000 payable to the Order of Remarkable Productions forwarded to me for transmittal to his attorney? So there you go.
Well, that would say to me that he was paid a fee to do that. So I don't know if he would be
he's not owner of
any points or anything like that.
There's another page.
Uh-oh.
Yep. The point number 1, the sum of $1,000 upon the execution of this agreement. If any musical composition performed by us in connection with to which you rendered engineering services is embodied phonograph record, we shall pay you the royalty set forth the agreement dated September the 22nd, 1976.
That's exactly why it was not included. There's absolutely why.
And I could go further again with just working on an article on another one of Eddie's albums. There was a discussion over the points, and he was getting, I think, 4 or 3% on the pre-Alive 2 album. So Alive 2 netted him, I think, something like $375,000.
Wow.
So we're big chunks of money back then.
Right.
Less now, but there you go. Just a little bit of numbers and stuff.
Well, there you go. That's why it's
I think that clears a lot of things up. So it's not definitive, but
nope.
If you put the puzzle pieces together, they seem to fit.
Yeah, you start throwing logic, and then things start making a little more sense.
Yeah. So how many sources do we have here of the audio? We have an audience bootleg, and then we have, what was the source? Do we know what the source of the audio on the original video was?
No, and I kind of wonder if that was like audience official. Like I kind of wonder if it was their like ambient mics. I kind of wonder because it sounds like that, because there are specific differences between the front of house, which is I'm assuming what the video is, than what the soundboard is.
Right.
So I'm assuming that it's going to be the ambient mics that were there, because there's a lot of ambient noise there too. There's a lot of it.
Right, and there is somewhere here in my archives, I've got a matrix of the soundboard and the original video audio, which makes for a very different experience watching the show, because you've got all the crowd noise, a lot of crowd noise in there, all that ambient stuff on top of a crystal clear soundboard, recording of the audio, and it's really cool to listen to. I've got to find it. It's here somewhere. So.
I'm going to stop you there for a second, because I think I've talked to 3 or 4 different people over the last 2 weeks about, possible trades and setting things up. And every fucking time I try to set something up, and I'm like, hey, this is the thing that I want. Every fucking time the answer is, I gotta dig that out. Let me tell you something. You KISS audio collectors, you are the worst at cataloging anything ever. People, they got. And you guys, both of you guys are like just having panic attacks right now, just like going through stuff. I know, like I understand. I know what happened. I get it. But like, take some time and just get stuff together.
Too much, man. It's just too much.
Because what you got to do is you have to bite. And I did this in 2008 or 2000. No, it was 2009 because I lived here in Cleveland, and I remember I lost a girlfriend over this. Where I sat down and I had all the I was cataloging everything. I was taking all of my CDs and putting them in the computer, rating them, and just seeing what I had and what I needed. And it took me a good 2 weeks, and I didn't have much back then. I had maybe 100 shows, probably less. But after that, I've just kept up on it. Every time I get a show, that's what I do.
No. I haven't done any of that since 1999. I gave up even back then. Pointless exercise.
Yeah,
it is because once the no pun intended torrent of shows, once you had that easy access of downloading stuff, I don't understand how anybody keeps it in line. It's mind-boggling to me that.
Yeah, and all the remastering and tweaking. I mean, I was guilty of doing some horrible tweaking back in the day to audio recordings and making them sound better to my ears. But then you turn them up and you can hear these bullshit, like warbles in the background from taking out the wrong area and just messing. Then you're trying to keep track of that's such and such a version. That's a version. Now I strictly go by. If I download a torrent, I think it sounds good, then that's my version until the next time. I keep it simple. I don't kind of rate it. There isn't any Richter scale for audios. This is an 8.2. This is a 3-star. I mean, it's just forget it.
The only time I will do an update.
This is the ultimate edition. This is the ultimate edition.
No, that's just
no
stupid.
one's ever had that. Yeah,
that's stupid. The only time I get an upgrade is if I have something that was in poor quality, like an audience recording, and it updates to a pro quad. That's the only time I give a shit about it. Whatever version.
A master.
Yeah, whatever version that comes into my hands.
Master for sure.
Whatever version that's in my hands is going to be my definitive version. I mean, unless. We're going back to the VHS tape trading days. There's a clear delineation between a 5th generation and a 1st generation.
Well, sure.
And that's just a no-brainer. But, like, you got these people who are like, well, you have MP3 source, and this is a wave source. I'm like, fuck you. I can't tell the difference, okay?
Sometimes you can with
sometimes.
that.
Sometimes you can put it into a spectrograph, and you just see the cutoff at 22K or something. Yeah, I think it's 20 or 22, and it's pretty clear. Other times, you can take an MP3, normalize, compress, and you get the spikes, and it's faux. So you only really know. I mean, audio engineers would probably say, "Well, you're not speaking properly," and no, I'm not. But you can fake it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, back
talking about Anaheim.
Talking about Anaheim.
Back to Anaheim.
So there's 3 different versions of the audio that's available. And I can't tell you when the last time I listened. One of the DVDs that I had before, Jason gave me his, might have the original audio in it. So there's the original audio, and then there is the audience recording audio, which was typically released on LP and then later on CD. And then there was the soundboard. So I kind of just want to give a 30,000-foot view here. And, obviously, unfortunately I got to do this. But, for you guys watching, I mean, I don't know anybody that knows this, but I am blind as a bat. So I'm about to read something that's very small print, and I got to put my glasses on because I can't see.
At least get them down the end of your nose. So
so I can just be like, I'm looking down the end of my nose. So the original release destroys Anaheim, which was the part 1. And what I mean by part 1, it will include side A, Hotter Than Hell, Nothing to Lose, Cold Gin with a guitar solo, Shout It Out Loud, and then side 2 will be Do You Love Me, Rock and Roll All Night, Firehouse, and Black Diamond. This first recording and this first release, you'll see them up on the screen now. There's at least 12 versions that are out there that were printed on different color paper, have different color ink. Because, I mean, a lot of these original bootlegs, they were just photocopies. I guess whatever paper they had, whatever paper was probably cheapest for someone to print out, is the paper that ended up in there. And
there's people that chase every one of those down, too.
And you know what? I'm also under the assumption that they also live in their mother's or grandmother's basement and have never seen one single tit.
That is not true.
No. Seriously, though, you'll see all the different versions here. All this information comes from the great kissbootleg.com. So if you want some sources, check out kissbootleg.com. But also, if you want a little more in-depth, check out kissmonster.com, because those are my two places that I'm always going to get information. So
steal information.
Yeah, get information. We share information. We don't steal anything. We get and we share. We educate. So then,
we always name our sources. I know.
Always.
We gather.
Yeah, we gather information. So then later on, there was apparently a limited edition re-release, and it was re-released on red vinyl and white vinyl, or maybe it's clear vinyl. It looks white. It's the same track listing, but there is a clear red vinyl, and it's either white or clear. I don't know. So later on. Yeah, so later on, there was another reissue, and we're still the same track listing. The concert still hasn't been released in its complete form yet. There was a Destroys Anaheim re-release, and the way you can tell the difference between this re-release and the first one is just has a different cover. Has a Destroyer picture on the front and a Dynasty picture on the back.
Do you have dates on those, like around when they came out? Does it say? No?
It doesn't. So what I do have is it looks like the original release was Canyon Records, Idle Mind Productions, Little Bird Productions, and Dragonfly Records. And
can you guess when that might have been? In mid-'80s? Or
it's got to be the mid-'80s. So the re-release was around 1984, and that was just the color of the vinyl. So it's still
what was the vinyl that you held up at the beginning of the show?
This was one of the original versions, and I can tell that because it's got the yellow paper. It has
that to me just screams late 70s.
It's got
I think so.
It's got the Kiss Army thing on the back, and then also there's nothing on the vinyl. Not even there's no label. There's nothing.
I think our friend Pablo would probably be able to date them for us. So he would know.
Well, the whole thing with bootlegs is because there were so many people bootlegging. It's so difficult to really definitively date. Sure. That's what makes getting into that side of the hobby. I mean, if you think about what Tom does as being arcane, well, I mean, going into the bootleg side, I mean, it's nigh on impossible a task to figure out the.
So we talked about the third release with the Dynasty picture on the back. So then we have a fourth release that was released in 4 different colors: a light blue, light pink, light yellow, and dark yellow. That again, the same track listing, and these labels are Party Down Records, Great Live Recordings. Finally, we go back to the original artwork, the one I showed. And this is another limited edition, and this is blue vinyl. Blue vinyl. So finally, we have the Kiss carton. Does anybody know when the original Kiss carton came out?
Sometime in the 90s, wasn't it?
Sometime in the 90s. And that Kiss carton came out, and it
92.
Still had 92.
Yeah.
And the Kiss carton, it changed the artwork again. We have an Obi. We have a New York City poster shot as the album cover. So if I take down my Superman curtain, the New York City poster is right behind me. Okay, finally, I promise that we're almost done.
That's the third finally, he said.
Finally, we get to part 2, and we get the missing tracks. The missing tracks being Detroit Rock City, King of the Nighttime World, Let Me Go Rock and Roll, Strutter on side A, and then side B is God of Thunder. That's it. Because he obviously got the bass solo and the drum solo. So this is Destroys Anaheim Part 2. There's at least 5 versions of this one, and it's just different color paper that it was printed on. It's really all there is. And then that was also re-released in the Kiss carton and as Part 2, same track listing. Later on, we have Part 1 and Part 2 finally issued together with the proper track listing, still called Destroys Anaheim. and it has like a red cover with a Love Gun picture on there, which I always thought it was interesting because you think that the biggest fans are going to be the ones that share bootlegs, but 9 times out of 10, it's someone who doesn't even care about Kiss. And they just take whatever picture that they can on there. That would make my OCD go nuts. So, and that was in the 90s. This is the 90s. So now we have Unnecessary Evil, which is incomplete, but is different tracks than part 1 or part 2. Unnecessary Evil, this one is, they say this one came out in the mid to late 70s, and the track listing for this one is Detroit Rock City, King of the Nighttime World, Let Me Go Rock and Roll, Strutter, and Deuce on side 1. Then side 2 is God of Thunder and Pull the Plug from Stars. I don't know why that's on there. It's on there, though. I don't know why.
Good song.
So, as far as I know, that is all of the versions that are available on vinyl for Anaheim. And that is all, I guess, the audience recording that we've been talking about. So it's not the soundboard recording, and it's not the audio that was in the video. Did you guys ever have any of these? Did you have Destroys Anaheim? Never?
No, I only ever had a cassette copy of someone's, and I don't even recall which one it was. From all of the work I did in like the Kissing related recordings focus, I definitely had the version that had the audience, because it was always a problem me trying to compare the missing songs from Alive 2 to see if that was maybe one of the sources for it. So that's all I remember, kind of focusing in on, and the audience got in the way when the Alive 2 recording is obviously so, the audience is what it is on there compared to the natural audience on Anaheim. So that's all I remember for the version I had.
Jason, anything from you? Any thoughts?
No, I didn't collect many vinyl bootlegs back then. I have much more now than I've ever had. I know that my friend Danny had several, and I believe he probably had 1 or 2 versions of the Anaheim, but I don't recall many specifics about it. Mm-hmm. My real introduction to Anaheim was getting the video for the first time in the late 80s. Yep. Okay. So,
before we jump into the video, because I definitely want to jump into that video, there are some versions that were issued on CD, and these were silver press CDs. So this is going to be around the late to mid 90s that this started really getting some traction here. So the first CD recording is titled Unnecessary Evil, and it's from Deep Records. No date listed, and as far as I know, the full concert is on here. And this is the one that I had, because this is the one with the Kiss comic as the cover. And then later on, Unauthorized Live Volume 2 by Joker Productions was issued. And this was a partial track listing. This is the same track listing as the original Destroys Anaheim. So, and it's got, those missing tracks. It's got missing tracks. So then, finally, we get to Zodiac Records, just Anaheim 76. And this was the first time that the soundboard recording was released for mass consumption. This says it was released in 2013.
Makes sense.
Yeah, 2013, right around there. So, there's a ton of versions of this just one show. So, hats off to anyone who is collecting all of those different versions, because how easy would it be for me to take this to my local Kinko's and just make all the cover colors the same? How easy would it be? Probably very, very easy. So... But yeah.
What sort of price range did you pay for that, if you don't mind me asking? And I know Kiss Bootleg does sometimes put guesstimates on kind of value. What do some of the early copies kind of sell for?
So when I purchased it in 1999, $20.
Nice.
$20. And it was great too, because, obviously I think either my mom or my dad bought it for me. They didn't know bootlegs, and I certainly didn't know bootlegs either. So they were like, "Well, is there going to be something on there when you take it home? Are they just selling you a blank piece of wax?" Like they didn't understand, and neither did I at that point in time. I remember right around that same time, it might have been that same year, when I did one of those Rothman conventions, and I bought, I think it was Cleveland 76. and it was on one of those black PlayStation discs. And I thought, I was like, oh my god, he sold me a coaster. So, and I didn't know.
Unnecessary Evil, which is guesstimated to have been released sometime in the mid-70s. There are two versions of that, and there's a version, an error version, that comes with a copy of a Jefferson Starship show inside of it. It's incredibly rare like that, but and you got to pay attention to the matrix number. So let's see. The important thing to note, the disc has also been released as a wrong pressing with the catalog number 507. What is a bit tricky, the matrix number 508 is ingrained in the vinyl while the actual label says 507. So you've got a version that is rare and comes with Jefferson Starship, but then you have another version that is even more rare and almost impossible to come by that actually has the real Kiss vinyl inside of it. Our friend Pablo at Kiss My Wax was telling me about it. He is a big time, he only collects Kiss bootlegs. He doesn't collect regular pressings of anything. He said as far as all of the classic Kiss bootlegs, the only one he does not have is the Unnecessary Evil with the right disc inside of it. Wow. And apparently that record goes for anywhere from $700 to $1,000 if you can find it.
Jeez.
So
and there's the cover again. We're going to show the cover again. It's them in front of the Grauman's Chinese Theater. And it looks like the actual label is blue from Wizard Records.
That's correct. Yeah. And so you can, that's definitely a bit of information. So if anybody has an unnecessary copy of Unnecessary Evil in their collection and it has the Kiss disc inside of it, it's worth a lot of money. So
yeah, sell it and then start saving your money to go get Gene Simmons' vault.
That's right. That's right. So
or come to Atlanta.
Or come to Atlanta. Oh yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. When did you guys first see the soundboard view of Black Diamond from this show?
That I don't recall.
Wait, the video with the soundboard?
The video where it was shot from the soundboard all the way in the back.
The version of Black Diamond where it shows the whole stage shot. Yeah.
Yeah. I do not remember at all on that.
I don't know when I got that because this is when I got I think 20 or 30 videos within a 2-month time span around 2000, 99, 2000. And I know it was on More Rare Bits and Pieces Volume 2, which was a compilation that was put out by Gary Danko, Rainbow Rockatorium. And it was on there, and I thought that it was great. And I was like, well, if it exists like this, the whole show has to exist like this. And here's why I think that. Because if you watch Detroit Rock City, there's shots of Detroit Rock City from the soundboard. And you never see it again. So so I think there's another version out there.
Nah, I doubt it's still in existence. Maybe, but I doubt it.
It's in someone's attic.
It could be.
They gotta dig it out. They gotta dig it out.
And I don't recall if when I first got, the VHS from Peter Arquette, if it had that particular view of Black Diamond on it or not. I have no clue. Not a clue in the world.
It was really popular, including that when you had the Unmasked Loft Rehearsals, which Unmasked Loft Rehearsals was Rock and Roll Over, and then they had those 3 songs in that hangar, Mass Rehearsals from Destroyer, and then you had Largo 75, Partial Houston 76, and this would be added on too. So you can get all 5 of those things on one tape in the 90s. It was really popular to get all 5 of those together. Because that's how I mean, I know I got that because I wanted those rehearsals, which there are more out there because of that. But that's another show.
And those are the things that make for interesting, like, audio collective archaeology. Trying to trace back to exactly where those leaked out of, and find out where the sources were obtained from. And in most cases, people will never talk about it because they were nefarious.
Right.
In some way, or some deal was made that should not have been made by someone who worked, or you hear the stories about thousands of tapes being thrown out and dumpster diving and all that sort of thing.
Right.
So it'd be fascinating to be able to trace back the lineage to a person and find out the context. That's what fascinates me. What was the context of this one clip, if it were one clip, entering circulation for us to enjoy? That's more fascinating than actually watching it, because once you've seen it, you've seen it. Finding out the story, always way more valuable to me as a collector.
That's why the 3 of us are here. The 3 of us
we're doing a show talking about this stuff, and
the 3 of us have never been in the same room together, but we know where the soundboard of Fort Worth, Texas, 1977 came from. I think that's always funny to me. We know those things. So,
and let me just add to that: we have not been in the same room together yet.
Yes.
And we will resolve that issue
in Atlanta.
Yes, in January, for sure.
See you in Atlanta.
For those that haven't seen the show, I'm sure most people that are watching this have seen and heard most of this stuff. But, I guess there may be some fans that are, just getting into this stuff. Quite an interesting introduction to this show, which is very different than your normal, you wanted the best, you got the best kind of introduction,
Yeah.
Flo and Eddie.
So you got Flo and Eddie dressed in makeup down on the stage, introducing the band by name, each member by name, and then Scream and Kiss. And then they, the band comes down descends from the steps, and Flo and Eddie are still on the stage. Shit's blowing up everywhere, and it's just kind of pandemonium for a few seconds. It's pretty neat to see.
Ace Frehley, Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Kiss!
Did you guys notice that Gene falls when he comes down the steps?
I think falls? Completely down?
Completely tumbles down, gets up.
No,
I've never noticed that.
My empathy filter is not on for the demon.
We're gonna, I'm like I do with all their shows. When we talk about bootlegs, I put in clips, but I'm telling you, he falls. He falls, and then he falls, and then you're like, wait, where is he? And then he gets back up. They're like, all right, there he is. But yeah, he's down for the count.
I'll have to watch that again. I noticed at the very beginning of the show that the bass cuts out several times.
It's because he fell.
Okay, well that may be it. It may make sense now. I always thought it was just a soundboard glitch, something, just getting the levels right or something. But I'll have to check that out.
I always said it was funny, when I used to play in the tribute band and our GM was wearing a destroyer costume. I go, dude, if you fall, it's gonna be like an armadillo. You ain't getting up. That's just it. You that's it. Just stay down. Just stay down. Don't even. Just.
That's funny.
Yeah, so Flo and Eddie obviously introduced them, and they did a lot of magazine features with them, didn't they? Mm-hmm. At this event, it was very big back in the press in the day, because it was one of the few successful, outings into stadium for Kiss during the summer.
Biggest show at the time, right?
For the band, I think the only other show that comes close is St. Louis '74, which is that the Kite Fly?
Yeah, the Keishi Festival.
Yeah. So, this is the only one that we actually have an official attendance figure for, and this was a reported box score of 42,987 of roughly 55,000 at the venue, and a massive gross for 1976 of $437,000. Kiss did not do those sorts of numbers. Kiss was not a stadium band. And, obviously having Flo and Eddie, who were massive, personalities at the time, that was the one thing that always struck me. It was so camp, so 1976 or so 1970s Americana, mm-hmm. with them kind of introing the band. But if you look at some of the press photos of the stadium, I mean, they had a high wire act. They had, what was it? Ted Nugent opening, Montrose, Bob Seger.
Acts, it was Flo and Eddie, which you mentioned, Ted Nugent, Montrose, and Bob Seger. Uriah Heep was supposed to play, but they were replaced by Montrose.
Yep. So, it's one of Kiss's absolutely biggest kind of shows. And, for me as a fan, when I got to go to Dodger Stadium in 1998 to be one of mine, I was like, okay, now I'm kind of near to an Anaheim level,
right.
Southern California. I'm in a stadium watching Kiss, so I'm one of the few. So for that to be my first Kiss, I always said, Anaheim is my kind of parallel universe show.
And let's talk about that famous billboard that we saw in Kisstory and we've seen so many times. I mean, talk about a cool billboard. And they must have thought it was cool too, because they basically redid it for the Detroit Rock City movie, for advertising that show that they did in '78. But I mean, this was so cool. Like, imagine just driving down the highway in 1976 and seeing that billboard. How cool is that? Was there more than one? There are several different photos, and I don't know if it's photos of the same thing, because I mean, I hope the people watching it understand that to have a camera with you at all times in 1976 wasn't the thing. I mean, we all have cameras in our pockets now. It wasn't normal. So, but I've seen several photos of that, and I've seen several different photos of that. So I wonder if there was more than one. But I mean, how cool was that? And also too, there was a significant amount of merchandise sold at this show as well. It was a little bit over 15% of the entire tour merchandise sold at this one show. And what was sold? Yeah. And where's all that merchandise now?
$35,000 worth of merch at one show in 1976 dollars, when most shows were just grossing that sort of amount of money themselves.
Right.
Yeah. That's just insane.
Yeah.
And that really is Kiss breaking out. I mean, Anaheim is Casablanca's home market back then, so you can understand that all the bells and whistles with a freewheeler, a gambler like Neil Bogart, this is just perfection. So that you get the Flo and Eddie, you get the merchandise, you get all, these massive billboards. It's hype. The king of hype on his home turf for one moment in history.
Yep.
And then you wrap it into what we have, listening to the soundboard, watching the video, enjoying everything else that goes with it.
Yeah.
It's so much bigger than it was, and that we're able to conceive.
Right.
And as a little added bonus, if you watch the video all the way to the end, there's quite a big firework display that was there at the stadium, which, you know, it's cheesy when you're watching it. I mean, I watched this on a 13-inch TV for I don't know how long. It's cheesy watching it on that, but just imagine if you were there and, like, you just saw Kiss, they just blew a bunch of shit up, and then you see, like, a fireworks display. That wasn't at every show. That wasn't normal. So it's very cool, and maybe we don't understand. I mean, maybe we do, but maybe also we don't. We don't understand the significance of this show, how big it was. I mean, this was Kiss. I mean, this was a band that 2 years before that, you know, were playing clubs, and now they're in stadiums, legit stadiums. You know, 42,000 people. That's
in stadium.
Yeah. Well, no, because there was also they also played Atlanta Braves Stadium in Atlanta on this tour.
Yep.
And they also
Fulton County. They did Roosevelt Stadium,
Roosevelt Stadium
Jersey
too.
City.
And actually, one of my friends, actually, that was his first Kiss show. He went to the Roosevelt Stadium show in Jersey City in '76.
That's killer.
Where they were throwing cartons of orange juice in the crowd.
But it wasn't an overly successful stadium outing like this one was.
No.
Neither was Braves. Kiss, you know, this was their one foray. And also remember that in the time between Alive and this occurring, you get Glickman Marks coming in. This is the tour where kind of the bean counters went out on the road with the band to figure out what they were doing right and what they were doing wrong. And they basically, after this, said, stay away from stadiums. Mm-hmm. Do not try to make that jump. This is not the right thing for the band to be doing. Go into, you know, CK's book and read all about it because he was there at the time. You know, I've read the report from the tour that was generated, and, you know, it was like, we need to not do these, not try and break Kiss into the stadiums. We need to do short little runs of tours, you know, exactly like Rock and Roll Over it represents, and Love Gun and Alive 2, short spurts, smaller venues, pack them out at 15,000. Don't go for the 40s because we're not there.
And just to give you a little example, how unsuccessful the Roosevelt Stadium concert was, out of a 35,000 capacity stadium, they only brought in 13,800 people.
Yep.
Which
and
again,
of course, Tempe, Arizona, another one stadium.
Yeah. Which again, 13,000 people for Kiss, great. You know, because Madison Square Garden, what is it, top out at 16? I think it is. And you know, and I'm one of those people that if I'm going to see a band and there's an outdoor show and an indoor show, you can bet your ass I'm going to the indoor show. I am not dealing with the elements.
Amen.
And again, I would love to know the source of the soundboard. You know, what sort of media did it come off? Is it, you know, full 2-inch tape? Is it 1/4-inch mixed down? You know, what are they left with? And do they have any, you know, does the source have any capability to be remixed? You know, so that you can kind of rebalance some of the elements within the show. It's absolutely stunning, but it's also, I miss the audience.
Sure.
Very, very much so. And I don't know whether that's because I'm so used to that being the version, or whether getting to hear the band, you know, I'm impressed. Anytime you get to hear Kiss actually perform, running, listen to Paul Stanley jumping up and down and singing and trying to play at the same time, you really get the full kind of environmental experience of what Kiss, you know, it's like aerobicize on stage on acid.
Paul Stanley exercise tape.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic to hear them trying to do that and some of the mistakes that they make.
Sure.
When you then marry it up with the video and you see Gene Simmons' tongue flapping, you know, he's wiggling his head, and you can actually hear the effect of him doing that on the soundboard. I absolutely love it from that perspective, but I really miss the ambiance of having the audience reaction in the right place at the right time for the recording that I guess I was more used to.
Well, Kiss listened to you because on Kissology, that's all it was all audience, just all screaming from beginning to end. You know?
No, they don't listen because it's all audience screaming. You're not getting any of the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows. It's not organic in any sense. It's just bullshit. Anyone can put a freaking audio track. You just cut 5 seconds out of any live audience and loop it, and there you go. You've pretty much got a live too. And that's the problem here on Anaheim. You get it in the right place on the original Anaheim. You get it in the right place at the right volumes, so it feels natural. The soundboard, you have to approach from like a more surgical point of view. Is what I'm saying. That you have to accept that the audience isn't there, and you can't put it in unless there's a 16th track on a 2-inch tape that has the audience feed.
Well, the original audio on the video, which is more that ambient sound, that's why I think, I've got to find, or if I can't find it, we've got to have somebody do it again, do a matrix between those two audios, because I think that would, not perfectly achieve, but I think that would achieve what you're describing here, Julian.
Oh, without a doubt, that'd be fantastic to do a matrix of the two and combine the levels of the best of each.
Right, I agree.
I totally agree. I totally agree. But I mean, this is still cool. This is still so cool. And here's another thing too that I'm not aware of any of this. Is there any radio ads or any TV ads that aired for this concert? I haven't seen any.
Damn, that's a good call out to make to the listeners. Did you ever hear of an ad? There must have been, because if you're talking 43,000 people and Flo and Eddie, there must be something, but did anyone capture it?
That's right.
We're very lucky to have a few shows where we do have the ads that survive. And TV, I don't remember seeing anything document-wise that would suggest that, but, obviously 1976, I'm 4 years old living in England. What about the people who lived in LA at the time? Was there anything? How much were these shows promoted?
Hold up. Isn't it is. So there's definitely two versions of this billboard. Eagle eye viewers, and this is why I love Kiss fans. Someone was watching the Woody Allen movie Annie Hall, and in downtown LA, if you look back there, and you can see it right now, there's the Anaheim billboard.
Jesus.
So there was more than one.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing, actually. That's pretty cool.
Got Woody.
Yeah, so there's more than one of that billboard. There's got to be radio. This was radio's peak time for advertising. That's how you got your information, was radio. I mean, obviously there were a lot of news channels at the time too, but still radio was the forum that not only you received information from, but that you communicated on. You can call into the radio shows. You could interact with that. So there's got to be something. There's got to be. I mean, I love any 70s radio content, whether it be interviews, commercials, or anything. So if anybody has anything, please, let us listen, and we'll definitely feature it on the show. It's something that I love. So there's got to be something out there.
Well, there must have been ticket contests, giveaths.
There had to.
Sure.
So who are the radio stations down there? Kalos. I can't think off the top of my head. There must be something, and someone must have taped something. That'd be really cool to hear.
Yeah.
So that the next Zodiac can include that on the beginning of it. And
Screw Zodiac. Let's do it ourselves.
Do it live. This shit sucks.
Do it live.
So, any parting thoughts on this show? There was a lot of information, a lot of different releases on this show, and if you haven't watched it in a while, go back and watch it, because it's such a cool show to watch. I had it last night, and I was literally sitting in front of my TV watching it. And I can't tell you when the last time I sat down and watched a show. Usually I have it on, it's in the background, I'm doing something else, whatever. But I sat down and watched it, and it was so cool.
It used to be so much cooler to me, when I was there, and my buddy would get something new on video, and we'd go to his house and go to his Kiss room and order a pizza and watch a show. don't ever do that shit anymore. Just like, oh man, I got this super fucking rare whatever I got, uncirculated, blah blah blah, and I stick it on and I go zip 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 and watch little clips of this and go, man, that was great.
Man, that was great. Let me stick it in this pile. Hey Jason, do you have this show? It's somewhere in this pile, and there's probably cheese in between two of these discs too.
Yeah, I guarantee you, this is one I'm actually going to sit back and put up on the big screen. It's, it's reinvigorated. It's one that goes so far back into, my personal collecting history that it's almost forgotten. And, in preparing for this show and kind of revisiting it, and I hope other people who've been watching this today are motivated to revisit it as well with new eyes and, maybe track down the soundboard or the sync versions or whichever, just to look at it with new eyes, maybe after not watching it for many years, and appreciate what a, fantastic show it actually is. And, maybe to a certain extent, what a shame it is that it wasn't included on an official release in pristine quality. So who knows what the future may hold. I'm definitely going to crack open a cold one and watch it on the TV.
Here's the assignment for you guys, and here's the assignment for our listeners. Obviously, the soundboard recording circulates, so I want you to listen to Shout Out Loud in the soundboard recording, and then I want you to listen to the Monster ebook and see what Kiss's source is. I'm willing to bet that Kiss's source is not the soundboard. Willing to bet. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to do that. I'm going to pull that back up and watch that and A/B it. And that's why I got... And it was funny, at the time when that was released, you needed to have an iPad to run the iBooks app. You couldn't run the iBooks app on OS X. Now you can, but at that time you couldn't. So you needed to have an iPad. So that was one of my motivating factors. Like, my obsessive curiosity is getting the best of me, and I need to figure this out. So that was one of the first things I bought when I got my iPad. So yeah, so that's your homework assignment, fellas. Accept it if you will. Tell me to fuck off if you won't.
And if you went to the show, please chime in and let us know.
Yes, if you went to the show. If you have, I've never seen a ticket stub of this show, and I would love to see a ticket stub for this show. I know there's some photos circulating that, well, it might not be from this show. It might be from Roosevelt Stadium, where it's the opening act. I think it's Bob Seger on stage, where all the Kiss gear is covered with cloths and curtains or whatever. I know that circulates. But, yeah. Obviously, comments are welcome. And if we got something wrong, tell us.
Sounds good. Is that it? I think that's it.
The Council of the Elders has spoken, so...
That's right. So, all right, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to Kiss My Collectibles, your source for vinyl, toys, bootlegs, and more. Visit us online at kissmycollectibles.com.